if we're able to pull them in, we definitely will. But we have a lot to go over, and we have so many amazing people here. I'm so blessed to have Arthur, Jamie, and Helen here to talk about music. Thank you guys so much for your time and for being here. And since we have so much to go over, I would love to just pop it to one of y'all so the audience can hear all about your background, your experience, kind of your journey as a game developer and in music, which would be super exciting. So Helen, if you wouldn't mind kicking it off for us, I'd love to share with the team, or not the team, the audience.
Crew.
Too team oriented.
Hi. Hey, everybody. It's so nice to meet you. This is really exciting to talk to folks. I'm Helen McWilliams. I'm the creative director on the Harmonix team at Epic. So I've been at Harmonix for like 20 years, almost exactly. And joined the Epic family 2 years ago. We're all still together under that umbrella, which is amazing. And I've had like a crazy, lucky, awesome career at Harmonix. So I've done like pretty much everything, and I've gotten to work with amazingly talented people like Arthur and Jamie in lots of different capacities. Yeah, it's been an awesome ride. And then yeah, as Shane was suggesting, I'm a musician too. I play guitar, I sing in a band.
No big deal. No, it's amazing. We're so excited to have you. I don't know if y'all saw Helen's awesome photo on the tweet that we put out, but I'm really glad you shot me that one because it was definitely one of the best action shots we've had.
I was like, I don't
in
have
general.
like a nice professional headshot like you're supposed to have for LinkedIn. Mine are all like, "Blah, look at me. Play guitar."
Infinitely better. Infinitely
You're
better.
awesome.
So thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Thank
We're
you.
so lucky to have you. I really appreciate it. So yeah, and we're seeing some questions. Yeah, rock band, that's right. A lot has come out of Harmonix. Y'all know Harmonix. Me dreaming about rock band coming back somehow. Dream away. So I guess yeah, thank you so much, Helen. And I'll throw it to you, Arthur.
Hey, what's up? I'm Arthur Anassi. I'm audio lead at Epic on Patchwork. Um, Very excited about that coming out and people getting their hands dirty. That's so much fun to see. I've been in the industry for like 16 years. I've done voice acting, mocap acting. I was the voice of Boombox in many of our games. Um, yeah, just excited to be here, talk some music.
Heck yeah, we're lucky to have you. Thank you so much. And Jamie, give him the lowdown about Jamie.
Hey, my name is Jamie Billings. I'm a sound designer, and yeah, I've been working with the Harmonix family since the Fuser days. So I was with the team since 2019. My background, like I work a lot with like a lot of different things within sound design. I work with media. Um, I worked on a lot of different plugins, software, hardware. Uh, I don't know. I love synthesizers. I play guitar, really into metal. Yeah, I just love everything about sound. I mean, I'm just really into synthesizers. So Patchwork coming out was just like the coolest thing ever. It was kind of like a huge dream of mine. I was like, we need to do something like this. Like, so when we finally did it, I was just like, this is incredible. And I think we made a really approachable way of just looking at I can't even talk synthesizers for beginners. I mean, I don't even know how to say it, and I think that it plays really well. So that's me.
We've got a lot of love for Patchwork out there from the creator base as well. So many people have been so excited to get their hands on it and play around with it and break it and make it do things that they're, trying to experiment with, which is so awesome to see. So we're really excited that everyone has been playing around. If you haven't yet, definitely go check out Patchwork devices. They're super, super cool. And then, yeah, feel free and throw some questions in there. We'll do our best to answer. For technical stuff, we do have an AMA coming up on the 30th at the end of the month. Some more deets will come out about that, where you can go to the forums and ask questions about Patchwork too. But yeah, so thank you so much for sharing your backgrounds and some of your history there with us. Would love to know, because I know there's a lot of people here that are looking to, get in deeper in the industry. I know a lot of people here are probably passionate about music or very curious about it. So I'd love to hear what inspired you all to get into music in gaming and how you first broke into the industry. That would be super cool. And I guess we'll just, for sake of just how many questions we have, if we can just kind of go in the same circle if that makes sense. So Helen, I'll throw to you if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in love with the game Karaoke Revolution when it came out, just as a player, and I had no like relevant experience or jobs before. Um, but it was just like one of these really strange life coincidences where I met a bunch of the crew that was at Irrational at the time, and they were working on like great games, and I like met them at a bar, you know what I mean? And then like one dude flipped over to Harmonix and was like, I think we're hiring QA on this game series that we're working on. It's like a karaoke game. And I was like, what? Like I didn't even know Karaoke Revolution was made in the United States, let alone in Boston. And that just it was just a crazy coincidence that they were hiring testers. And he was like, can you sing? And I was like, kind of. In I maybe. So I ended up interviewing, and then I actually got a job on the um first and only Harmonix game that wasn't a music game, which was called iToy Antigrav, which was for the PS2 iToy camera. If anybody remembers that, it was a hoverboarding game. And yeah, that was in 2000, like early 2004, I think. So yeah, and then I just ended up like so many people doing, I started in QA and I just did tons of different things, and I joined the company at a really like fortuitous time given my interests, because once we started doing Guitar Hero and Rock Band and stuff, I was like, "Hey, do you guys need someone to write descriptions of vintage guitars? I'll do it." And they were like, great, good, do whatever you want. Like, we're busy. It's a scrappy company. You can do whatever you want. So I ended up, because we were a very small company trying to make a lot of things, I got to have lots of different experiences that I was like not qualified for. And you just learned on the job. So like, Arthur was like, can you do voice acting? Sure. Can you direct? Sure. Can you do some press for us? Great. Can you pitch Rock Band to the partners? Great. Like, so it's just been a wild ride. And then eventually I was running projects, and then I was a VP of creative at Harmonix, which meant that all of audio and design and art reported up to me. And that's like still how we doing it at the Epic
Heck yeah.
family now. Sorry, that was a really long story, but it's been a long 20 years.
Yeah, and honestly, what I love that you touched on too, Helen, is because I also had a very similar experience, and so did a lot of people that came in around the same time I did, and some that even are at Epic over here now today that we followed each other. Was the just kind of jumping in, getting your hands dirty, doing whatever needs to be done, just because you're so excited about it, and you're picking up new skills and you're learning things so quickly. But it's
Yeah,
definitely quite the experience in this industry. I feel.
it is. And that's always my advice to people is like, if you can find any way to get a foot in the door, if that's what you want to do, like take, any job. Like I know a lot of people don't necessarily recommend starting in QA these days because it's like a pretty different, you know, like skills that you need, but I mean, if you can start there, you can start there, great. Like start wherever you can get a foot in the door, but then exactly like you're saying, Shane, um look for things that aren't currently being done that it would be useful for someone to do, and just start doing them. Like, and no one will ever get mad about that. If you're like, hey, I noticed that maybe it would be useful to have a spreadsheet tracking this thing, so I made one, here you go, you can use it or not, I don't care. And like it's just you can just start pretty much like doing things that aren't being done, and often that can transition you into a role that you're passionate about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then Arthur, I know you were mentioned a little bit in there, but how did you get into the industry, and what advice would you have for those who are looking to get in?
That's funny. Like Helen's basically telling a version of my story, I think. So like I always wanted to work in games when I was a kid. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I loved games and playing tons of games. So I knew I wanted to go down that road, but I thought it was a pipe dream, basically. So I did realize that I wanted to do music with the rest of my life, and so I went to school for music and studied that and learned production and synthesis and all the different things. Um, Graduated, got out of school, worked at some studios around town, eventually went broke, and then like found Harmonix and decided to try and get a job. And when I say try and get a job, I mean like like sending my resume, not hearing back, going like knocking on the door and being like, "Hey, I really want a job. Can you give me a job, please? I'll take anything." And I started in QA.
Don't do that, by the way.
Yeah,
If
don't do that.
anyone's
Don't do that.
That's a bad
That
idea.
was back then.
It
That was
only
back
worked for
then.
Arthur.
Yeah, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. But yeah, yeah. So I started in QA, uh, just like a lot of other people do, and eventually got an opportunity to do like some what we call authoring, which is like making the notes for Rock Band. Um, and I was already producing, and I was super familiar with DAWs, digital audio workstations, for those who don't know. Um, so yeah, I was already proficient in that stuff. So I was like, okay, I can basically translate my skill set into gameplay, and that's a way for me to kind of move into a new role. And boom, I was on the audio team, and it just kept going from there. Once that snowball starts, you kind of get rolling. So yeah, worked my way up, and eventually like it was creative lead on a game, and now I'm audio lead on Patchwork at Epic. It's awesome. You can do it. You just keep doing it.
That's right. There's a lot of passion in this room. And if you're passionate about something, I mean, just doing all the things that, especially in a world that's so social now, being the squeaky wheel, putting your stuff out there, adding value and showing up for those teams and studios that you want to work for, that, putting that out there all the time is really, really helpful. It's interesting how it's changed over the years, how we used to have to literally, like you were saying, Arthur, walk up to the door and knock, or be loud in those kinds of ways. And now there's more avenues to do that. So that's really helpful as well. Jamie, for you getting started, and then any advice you have for those who want to get in.
Yeah. So I was always a musician. I love music. I always loved sound. I used to listen to records and just be like, how did they get that distortion sound? Like I was just like always interested in pedals and things like that. Um, I loved sound design, but I didn't know it was called sound design. I was just like, I just like to make these crazy sounds. So I was in bands in high school. I got accepted to Berklee College of Music. I went super broke. It's so expensive to go there. I was there at student loan debt, and before I graduated, I knew I needed experience before I graduated because I would just be up against all these people with the same experience as me, a college degree, same college, great school, same credentials, which is nothing. And so I was working with different universities in the area and not in the area, just finding different indie developers online, looking for a very beginner composer and sound designer. So I was doing that to get experience. I graduated. I got a job at In Music Brands, which was kind of like the path was like this way for games. And I took a slight venture, but it was cool because I got to work on hardware and software that people use to make this kind of stuff. So I worked like also with Avid for Pro Tools, and there were all these like side tracks I did. So yeah, I worked for a while. I was working a lot. Got a job at MIT Game Labs. I got a job with Girls Make Games, and I was teaching sound design. Then I moved to New York City, went more broke, and I was like, man, like I'm, coming to like these points where it's like something either has to happen and it's not, or I need to venture back. So I was like, I think I just got to move home. I'm from Boston, or I'm from Northern Mass, but I lived in Boston for like 15 years. So I moved back home, and I posted a very desperate status online. And our colleague, Rick Cody, who's also my friend from Berklee, he answered. And I was like, I really need a job. Like, I need a job. Like, I need a job. Does anyone have a job in the game industry? I know no one does. It's so hard to get a job. And he hit me up. He was like, yo, we're hiring QA. And I was like, oh, like I had this like ego moment where I'd done QA before years ago, and I was already a sound designer. I was like, do I really want to take like, to me, what felt like a step back, which really, it was like a really amazing thing that I took this opportunity. And I was like, should I do QA? And I went, I interviewed, I loved everyone there. Like, it's like the nicest people. It's like really like weird how nice everyone is there. So I did QA for a while, and I let Arthur and Helen and our colleague Jeff Allen, our friend, know. I was like, I really want to be on the sound design team, and everyone was like really supportive. And there wasn't a role for a while, and I just kept being really annoying. And finally, something opened up, and then I moved to sound. So it's kind of a long story here too, but I just try to stay as active as I can. I really love music. I'm always working on some weird stuff, but that's what I do. But my advice is to just stay persistent without being annoying and say what you want without being fake. Like if you want a job, just be like, "Hey, I want a job." You probably don't have anything, but like don't, just be real and like always work on something. And I've been rejected from probably like I can't even I have had way more rejections and failures and like, you know, acceptances and successes, but I mean, I'm really grateful to be here. So just be persistent. It sounds cliche, but I mean, there were times where I used to cry a lot. I'd be like, "Oh my god, nothing's ever going to happen to me." And then it did. So that was like a good thing. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much, Jamie. All right. Well, we have a lot to get through. So I'm going to throw some questions out there and just kind of throw it to the room. And if any of these questions like speak to you and you feel like you have a good response or story, feel free and pop in. We don't have a delay like we do on our typical live stream, so it should be a little easier to navigate. But I want to make sure that whatever questions we have that you're excited to answer, and we make room for that. So would love to hear if there have been any memorable or challenging moments from your career in games and music so far, and if there's any valuable lessons or experiences that new game designers could learn from.
I always think that one of the most surprising aspects of designing music games specifically, and for anybody who's interested in doing music game work, is that if especially if you're a musician, but if you're a musical person at all, I think we really overestimate most of the public's ability to like discern musical differences or music changes or anything that has to do with music gameplay without a visual indicator that corresponds. So a lot of the time when people, I have people all the time, like young folks who are making music games and they want to show them to me and get my feedback and stuff. And it's often like, "Hey, I made a platformer where you just jump up when the music goes up and you jump down when the music goes down. It's super easy." And I'm always like, you need a visual indicator because you'd be shocked at how much people struggle to just like listen to just like determine things about the music from just listening. So that's why in Rock Band, for instance, you can play by ear to a certain extent, right? Where you're like listening to where the notes are going to come in and playing by feel. Most people are playing from the visual indicator of seeing the like note cross the little threshold at the bottom. That's like how the vast majority of people are going to play that game. If we asked people, even with a very, very, very simple beat or track, to play by ear, like no one could do that. So that's just my top level advice is like really underestimate the general public's music ability, especially if you're musical, because it just isn't something that everybody has. So you really have to design for folks who like music and might like wish they were more musical than they are. That's the majority of people out there.
That's
Thank
so
you,
true
Helen. That's good.
because as musicians, we also tend to make things more complicated, which is probably not what you want to do for a game. You want to make it accessible. Yeah, totally.
Definitely. Any other learnings or experiences that um, anyone's comfortable sharing that could help new game designers or music designers learn?
I think like uh, it's not really a technical thing, but um, something that was really important to me coming up in my career is learning how to fail like gracefully. I think it's a really important lesson for anyone doing any art form. It's like you don't have all the answers. There are better ideas always coming up, and your idea isn't always the right idea. And learning that humility, it took me a while to do that. Um, and I think it could take some folks a while to do that, especially if they're very eager. Um, so yeah, I'd say learning how to fail and being humble about it was really valuable.
Awesome. Are there any educational paths or resources that y'all have found particularly beneficial in your journey in regards to gaming and music, or music design in general that you would recommend?
Well, as someone who went to college for this, I, you know, I learned a lot more when I had my when I was actually doing it. Because I don't know, that's just me personally. Some people are like really great book learners and retain everything, but I think that once you're actually thrown into the fire, you're kind of learning as you go. And the next question might be, well, how do you get there if there are no jobs or whatever? And it's like, well, that's why I think it's important to network with people around. So if you're like in university and you're like, okay, like I'm not qualified for this job yet, maybe look for other people who have different skill sets who are looking for a game job, like a whatever, like in development, and you can like learn with them, because I think the more skills that you learn, the better. Like, so if you're a sound designer, maybe learn some engineering skills because it's going to come up later. I learned so much from my QA role here. Like, I learned how to communicate with like every aspect of every team and learn, like, the QA roles are like next level. Like, I don't think they get enough credit. Those people are really smart. Like, I'm not saying I'm really smart. I'm just saying that like my bosses, like some of the stuff they did is just like, whoa, there's a lot of certification and everything. So I think just learning as much as you can about things that maybe you weren't super interested in. I think that's smart.
Awesome. Cool. So we're going to jump into a little bit more of music design in gaming and the nitty gritty there, and hopefully it'll help inspire the audience here and our creator guests here for the kind of work that they're going to be doing in Patchwork or with Patchwork right now and moving forward in the Fortnite creative and UFN space. So, some great questions that we got from the audience earlier, and one of them being, how do you approach selecting music or composing music for a game? And what factors influence those decisions? Like tone, tempo, rhythm, genre? What kind of goes into that?
Licensing.
I was going to say, in your case, Helen, and all the stuff you worked on, I know that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean,
Same.
if licensing weren't a factor, if you're selecting music for our games, we're really looking for, if you think about music like a song as a level, we're looking for music that really like is fun to play for everyone from beginning to end. Like, there's a journey. It's not like going to be the same all the way through, but ideally there's like a level of like difficulty or experience that is like consistent. If it's consistent across the instruments, that's great. If it's like, if there's just sort of like a song that's interesting on all parts. Like, those are the kinds of things we were looking for in picking songs for a rock band, for instance. It's like, it you would think that you'd sort of go in and be like, here's my 30 favorite songs, let's put them in the game. But it's like, it's so much more. We often had songs that like maybe are songs we really did not listen to on our own outside of work, but like we absolutely loved in the game, because it's just like such a good gaming experience. So, definitely something to think about there. And then in terms of like composition, Jamie and Arthur can certainly like talk more about their experiences there.
Yeah, in terms of composing for like trailers or when it's not like licensed music, you have the visuals to follow sometimes. Usually audio goes last, right? So visuals are in, animations are in, that kind of stuff is in. That's great. You can follow that and get inspired by that. But in terms of process, I like to shed a lot, which means like write a ton of different things. Like if you're gonna write some trailer music or some music for a level, write a lot of different things in a lot of different genres. Use a lot of different sounds. Also in sound design, do the same thing. Um, and then share that process so that you get a lot of feedback and people get excited and invested in the process and might throw you an idea that you didn't even think of, and it might not even be in the audio discipline. Like an artist might be like, yo, this would sound really dope here, and boom, it changes your whole process. So yeah, share your process and then edit. The most important thing is edit. Like the first thing you come up with is not the thing. It's gonna be on a way to the thing. So don't be afraid to edit. Don't be afraid to rip things out, start over, stuff like that. It's part of the process, you know.
I have like a riff off that, and I'm curious too about if I can ask you guys a question. So
Yeah,
with
go ahead.
if I'm just like writing a song, not necessarily for work, but like outside of work, I have learned. It took me like a really long time to understand that the the part where you think everything is like horrible and you have no talent and you've wasted all your life is like a
Yeah.
necessary part of the process for me. And so just like with what you're saying, Arthur, of like just get used to like not the first thing isn't the best, like get comfortable with shedding things. Like do you find that there's a point, like I often find like I'll make a bunch of progress on a track and then I hit the dark place where I'm like have no talent and I can't do anything. This is a nightmare, and then like I'll just go to bed. And then the next day I'm like, okay, 1/10 of this is actually good and the rest of it is bad. But like
Oh,
I
so
made
real.
progress. Like I got 1/10 of it. And now I just have to like keep doing that until it's there. Is that like you're laughing, so I'm guessing that resonates.
That's so
Okay.
true. Like, yeah. So I go to that dark place almost every day. And you go to sleep and you wake up and you find like the gem in what you wrote. And you're like, oh, this is what I was trying to get at. Yeah, yeah, it's great. I love it. The dark place can be kind of fun too.
I
Yeah,
think
like you get that ear fatigue and then you step away and then you're like, okay, I can hear this in a different, it's almost like you have to change your perspective. You have to like, I take a
Yeah.
lot of walks. Walks help me a lot. Like getting away from the computer and just away from anything. I find I come up with my favorite pieces of music that way. And that's why I think you should always have like some sort of recording device with you, whether it just be on your phone or not. But yeah, I'm always in the dark place, like literally, like all my music sucks.
Oh, no.
that's a really good advice too of just like having like your phone and being ready if something strikes. I find too sometimes I have to like I'll call it like break my ear where I have like certain artists that are so avant-garde or they're doing something so atypical musically that it sort of like resets my brain a little bit. Like I just have to sort of like break my ear and go back into something so that I'm not
Oh yeah.
drawing on the same influences all the time.
Yeah,
That's
comedy does
super
that for
smart.
me. I go watch a stand-up special and I'm like reset.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Interesting. No, that's definitely there's a lot of psychology behind that. So it's really cool that you figured that out and that works for you. And what a great tip. And we're seeing a lot of comments as well with people following similar paths and experience that dark place. So definitely hearing that. And then Zinc with it's reassuring to hear there's missteps before getting to the top. Thank you for being so open. Yeah, we really appreciate it. And we're excited to have you, Zinc. I don't want to call Zinc out, but Zinc helps the community a lot. So thank you so much. Let's see. Oh, I'm really excited to get on this topic, and that is we can all agree that music strongly can influence a player's emotional engagement with a game. So I'd love to discuss how you go about creating music that enhances immersion and evokes specific emotions in players. This can be anything, of course, from when you're some sort of tense moment or even a nostalgic moment we see a lot lately, or just excitement in general, celebrating something. There's just so much you can do. But for specifically bringing that emotion with building music within a game, what thoughts do we have around that?
That's all you guys. You pros.
I figured I.
Jamie, you want to go?
Okay. I guess for me, like I have like a really easy time picking up emotions like in general. Like I'll walk into a room and I'm like, "Oh, you're really sad right now." Like I like literally like take on that empathy and it can be really draining. But like I am when I look at visuals, I mean, I think that visual artists are so good at coming up with their own emotions and putting them visually on a screen. So for me, it's like whether it be a really emotional thing or like it sounds like weird, but like if I don't know, even colors I think have like emotions with them too. And it's like I can look at something and be like, all right, I think it would feel like this, like it's because it made me feel a certain way. It's almost just like for me, I have to be in like somewhat of an emotional state to come up with music anyway. So it's kind of like a psychological thing. I'm sure I could be studied, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say like what is the scene or the level trying to say? Like what is it trying to do? But empathy plays into that because you have to be empathetic to the scene, to the characters in the scene, or whatever's happening in the scene. What instruments do you hear when you see these things happening, or like when you play a level? Um, you kind of learn what the particular project needs as you go through it, and just being open. Um, to immersion can mean anything, right? Emotion can be a lot of different things. And you can with music too, you have the ability to flip an emotion like upside down, where you can take a really sweet melodic line and make it extremely tragic, based on when you play it in a scene or how you use it. So yeah, all those kind of things just follow the work.
Thank you, y'all. And then Helen, for your band specifically, I'm kind of curious to hear when y'all are writing music and lyrics and things like that, and you're trying to, how do you go about choosing the tone? Is it just kind of the overall brand of the band, or, how someone is feeling in the moment who's writing, or how do y'all come to those, tones and
Oh,
ending?
cool question. It's really different. So I play in a like a melodic hardcore kind of band, melodic punk. Um and it's very different songwriting process than I'm used to with my old band. In my old band, I like wrote every note of everything. And I would just be like, you play this, you play this, you play this, you play this. It's like
Yes.
I wrote every song, I wrote all the lyrics. I like came in with them and then we just like arranged them. And this band is like it's very collaborative and I feel like I barely write, even though I do a lot of the collaborative work. So often our process is my guitar player Phil, who actually used to work at Harmonix. Three members of my band used to work at Harmonix.
Oh,
I still
wow.
do. Um, and so Phil will come in with this like some crazy technical riff, and then he'll have sort of like five random technical guitar riffs that I'm all excited about. And he's like, it's one of my favorite things about music because to him he's like, I have this, but it's nothing. I don't know what it is. It's nothing. Like I don't. It's not a song. It's just nonsense. And I'm like, "Oh, no, no, no. We're just gonna take this one out. We'll use that one later. That one's for a different song. And what we're gonna put there is just like a little verse where it's just like some simple chords. And then we can use that other crazy technical one over here. And we'll come back to this one. And I usually like once it's a little bit structured, I immediately like hear a melody. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna sing this over it. And it's wonderful because Phil treats me like I have like this crazy superpower. Like I wrote the song where he's like, "Ha, wha, how?" And I'm like, you wrote it. Like
Oh.
I just like helped you declutter it, you know? So it's a really, really fun process that way. And a lot of the time, I'll write lyrics because I like, Jamie and Arthur are saying like the song has a feel and it's like it'll just like evoke something immediately in me. And but the guys in my band often like have no idea what the song is until like we're interviewed, you know? And there'll be someone an interviewer will be like, "What's this song about?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's about like misogyny and like capitalist culture." And they're like, "It is? What?" Oh. Just like, it's like that's what I felt like it was about. Wasn't that obvious to everyone? Um so yeah, it's really fun, and that's one of my favorite things about making music in this way is like you people can contribute their little superpower to it, and it's almost always that person doesn't realize that what they are bringing is like so special to everyone else who's collaborating on it. Like everybody's like, well, I don't know, I can't do anything that, but boop 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 boop, but that's nothing, and you're like, what? That's the best part of
It's
the whole
everything.
song. So it's just like, yeah. I mean, maybe my band's like really humble and insecure. But yeah,
Oh, it's being an artist. I think it's just hard when it's art and it can be interpreted in so many ways and it can be an experience in so many ways. And just like you were saying, one person's bow is another person's, oh my God. That's so amazing. So
yeah,
no, it was super appreciated. Thank you for that perspective. That's
of
super cool.
course.
And I want to throw to rhythm and music based games or rhythm games in particular. I know we talked about having the visual aspect to help people learn and play a game, and so it's most accessible. But are there any other things to consider in terms of design considerations when it comes to a rhythm game compared to a game outside of that genre?
I mean, like I said, so much is about giving people indications to follow so they can follow the music better. And we like to do, if you start looking at harmonics games, you'll see more what I mean. But like we don't usually have like one indicator. It's like
Yeah,
there's multiple ways that we're giving
it
you
feels
feedback.
good.
Like if you think about something, even like Dance Central, right? Like we're showing you the character doing the dance move. We're also showing you flashcards that give you a little like reminder of the basics of the move, and they give you what we call look ahead to like, okay,
Mm.
this is what's coming up. Because you can't just like jump into a move like when you see it. We also have indicators like on the bottom under the character that's like a ring that like lights up to tell you like when you're doing it right and when you're doing it wrong. We have like per limb feedback that shows you like, no, something you're not doing something right with your hand. That one's not right. We have like a thing on the top that says like perfect, good, not right. There's the score, there's like stars on the boom box. There's so many different ways that we're trying to visually tell you like how you're doing, when you're doing it right, when you're not doing it right, and trying to help you follow along. So I think just becoming a student of good user interface is really useful. Like looking at the games that you like and kind of thinking like, oh, how is this conveying information to me so that I can play along is like really good if you're trying to get into music games. And then of course I think we have to think about focus maybe more than other kinds of games or in a different way, because we often talk about our games put you in what we'll sometimes call like a flow state where sometimes people might notice that if you're playing Guitar Hero or Rock Band, for instance, like you cannot talk while playing those games, like really hard. Like it requires this level of like detached focus. It's like hypervigilance and being in like a relaxed state. Um, and that's a little different than certain other games, even like Fortnite, you can kind of like you can be very focused on like the task at hand, but you can also be like chatting with people at the same time while you're doing it. And so that's something that you have to think about when you're designing music games is like you have a certain amount of very directed focus. And that means things like if you're wanting to convey something over here to the player, like they probably aren't going to look at it. All that stuff that we do in Rock Band that's like characters on the screen doing things, like that's for the other people in the room. We know you're not looking at that. You're looking at the chat. So, yeah, just a different way of designing because we know your attention is like so oddly focused.
Thank you for bringing that up because even as a player, someone who really, really loves rhythm games, I actually did not realize exactly how many indicators there are going on because of that, because of the flow state, I think. You're really, really focused just on, the thing you're supposed to be hitting. Are you hitting it? And then the peripherals are all like the shiny perfect and glitter and or it's getting bad and oh my gosh, let's duck and run. But
Yeah,
get better, get
exactly.
good.
Stuff that you don't have to look at. You can just sort of
Yeah.
like it just kind of like washes over you and it's like only in part of your consciousness.
Yeah, no, that's super wild. Yeah, that's a great, great point. Thank you for that. And I think there's definitely going to be more opportunity for that in the Fortnite creative and UFN space as we move forward too with Patchwork. And I've seen people utilizing VFX to kind of draw attention more to like that reinforcing that behavior or that action. Or so I think we're going to see a lot of evolution there as well. So that's super exciting. Thank you for sharing that. Another one that's important, of course, is like feedback loops in gaming with the music design to help player comprehension and motivation. We added a lot of that with Patchwork. So, for example, when you run into a room and a guard sees you, suddenly there's a dun 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 kind of music that you could implement, or maybe it's funny music or whatever the tone is you're going for. But it's reinstating that, okay, you've moved on to the next area, you're supposed to be here, but also watch out, be on alert, things like that. So curious to hear if there's any techniques or methods that you would employ to use music to provide feedback to players and keep them engaged, and also wanting to return for more. If there's any advice you have there, whether it's the sort of, it could be, I guess, the overall tone of it. It could be just that exciting, adrenaline rush of the different techniques that you're using for the music as they perform certain actions. But curious if anyone here has anything to share about that in particular.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, when you're like, that's kind of situational music, right? Like you're in a state. S- it's when you're writing music for that stuff, and players are going to be playing that level for a while, or that in that state for a while. I think it's important to know when to sort of stay out of the way. Um, like if you want to create a moment of like tension, it's like you set the tension with a particular instrument, or like some kind of high string, like in classic horror thing of like, like the strings that go up. But if you keep beating the player over the head with that, it eventually wears down and it starts to like degrade the experience. It actually starts making it hard to play. It's kind of like Joker, and that, like, every Joker scene in Batman has this one tone that plays every time he's on screen, the entire time, and it's just one tone, but it's so unnerving and it makes you so uncomfortable that they don't even need a whole bunch of other dramatic music to make you feel that way. It's just one tone. Uh, yeah, so picking your instrumentation carefully is a big part of it, I think, and knowing when to just let like one thing do the job for you instead of like piling on a bunch of music.
Yeah, especially with Patchwork, there's the ability to do so many things with those devices, that we kind of forget that you can go minimal with it. You want to jump in and jam and get a bunch of people, working on something to get that feeling. But less is sometimes more, definitely, especially in those kinds of games, like you're saying, or with that sort of tone, Arthur. But
Yeah.
I could see that being just across the board too, starting simple and then, if need be, layering. But we kind of forget about that, I believe, especially when we're newer into music, I think.
Yeah, we had jams in Patchwork where we would just keep piling in more devices, more devices, more devices, more sound. And by the end of the session, we try to end the session by peeling everything back, and that's really gratifying as well. It's like removal of sound can actually be powerful as well.
Definitely. I think this is a good question too for you in particular, Jamie. And that is, what are some of the technical aspects of music game design that new designers should be aware of? So I know they mentioned like synchronization, timing, integration with gameplay mechanics, things like that. But are there any other technical aspects that you would recommend that's, with someone with the experience that you do, kind of all the way across the board?
Well, I've definitely learned so much about just like audio implementation just from watching like so many of the courses that Epic does for Unreal Engine. Like, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when people start maybe like a new software they're learning and they have experience before, maybe with a different like maybe with like a DAW like Logic, and then they want to learn Pro Tools. It's like you kind of come in with like that mindset of like, this is how it looks, like blah, blah, blah. But there's always that transferable information that it kind of like, it's like in both software, but like it's just maybe it looks different. They have a different method. So I think being comfortable with just like different middleware, Unreal Engine as a whole, just like learning like how meta sounds, like things like that work. Like I think that's really good to know. Because yeah, just staying up to date with things is pretty key. I mean, when we were when Harmonix was brought over into Epic, it was just we were using Unreal Engine, but I just remember it was really that was like when I really learned it because you kind of had to stay up to date. But yeah, it's just, when you have like a background with like, music like in general, and then you're kind of looking at like signal flow and you're like, okay, how to use like modular synthesis and like blah blah blah, different types of synthesis, and like everything is transferable, but just like knowing how to stay up to date with new software. So I mean, it's not like a plug. I'm not just saying learn Unreal Engine because we're over here now, but it is, I think, pretty key. A lot of the stuff we're doing is very futuristic. So that's my advice.
Sweet. And we're talked about it a little bit here, thrown to the Joker reference. But in gaming in particular, there's a lot of iconic music themes that have become synonymous with that game or that brand. How would any of you approach creating memorable and recognizable music that can leave a lasting impact on players?
It's really, really hard.
Yeah, I think it's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that, to be honest. It's like really hard. It takes
It's like
time.
the special juice, the special sauce, the once in a lifetime piece of music, right? That can be pretty hard.
I
Do you
guess
guys do you make like reference boards? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you like,
Ooh.
okay, this is because I know that's like a big thing on the art process is like, okay, this is the mood. This thing like really gets it across. Or do you think that would like get in the way of creating from scratch for you?
I think it'll help for sure. Yeah, any of those tools you can use to inspire you is a good idea. Um, it's hard to know when you've hit something iconic until it's already out, and the audience tells you it's iconic. Yeah,
I feel like that also the implementation and how it is in like integrated into the story mixed with everything. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that feeling, right, as a player. So, the moment I come upon something and the music fits just right and it really, makes me feel like I'm there, feel like I'm immersed, it gives me chills. Like those are the moments that, it's a combination of so many different things. But I also think as a player, when I hear a soundtrack that I then deem as iconic or something that leaves a lasting impression, it feels like it's typically the ones where I'm not expecting it, where it's either different from other music I've heard um, in the gaming sphere, or it's almost like ironic. For example, there's a horror game where it's kind of cartoony and just a very simple one, a lot of black blobs, a lot of like nostalgia, almost like an older cartoon. And in that one, the music is a little bit more like, like it's almost happy, but everything around you is feeling very odd. So I remember that one very specifically. Or any of the ones where it's just a little bit different than the typical orchestrated soundtrack that we hear in movies and other media that we consume. Those always stand out to me.
That sounds very scary.
It is definitely strange and unnerving. They did a great job.
Yeah, I definitely that's like, oh, can I mention I can say other game names, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't, so I was like, "We're
No,
not
you're right.
sure."
I
All right.
actually forgot, so I didn't want to butcher it.
Okay. Yeah, my favorite for that reason is, the Fallout 3 soundtrack because, like, that Ink Spots song, "I Don't Wanna Set the World on Fire," that just, like, kicks off that game, and you're like it becomes so ominous, and yet it's very like, "Brr, brr, 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 brr," and you've, like, never heard that kind of music used in that way, especially in, like, a contemporary title. Just, like, really, like, kinda put me on edge in a perfect way.
yo,
Yes.
Last of Us, the way they use
Oh,
acoustic guitar. Uh,
Oh,
they bring out the acoustic guitar when they want to make you feel all the feels, and then when they want to just tear you to pieces, they bring out the acoustic guitar, and it's so effective in both ways. And they even wove that into the storyline for the second one. It's just like next level design. It's pretty cool.
1,000%. Yeah, the one that comes to mind for me, in terms of the one that I watch it every time I turn the game on. I watch the opening all the way through because I also now very much love this song. But from Borderlands, I think it was Borderland. I want to say it was the second one where they use the Heavy's short change hero in the beginning of the opening. But that just like amped me up and made me feel like, yeah, yeah, I'm one of these. Like I'm part of this world. This feels great. But it is really fun, especially incorporating those kinds of license things as well. And then all the way to your point, Arthur, with the just different style of music being so unique, and then using it to control our emotions is very iconic. Um, so we got this question, and I threw it in here. But if we're unable to answer it, that's okay too. Or if it's hard to answer in a fireside, that's okay too. But I wanted to make sure and call that out. And it was someone was asking, how do you combat latency when working with music-focused multiplayer games?
I'm just glad you're thinking about latency. It's that is a thing I should have called out as like a very specific music gaming problem, but it's like I don't even think of it because it's like, it's like part of my day that I forget isn't a part of other people's lives. Um, but yeah, it's again, this is somewhere where like you're gonna want to make sure that people have a way of, I was like semi joking in the chat when somebody was like talking about like an issue with like the beat being off, where I was like, calibrate, like that's always our solution. I'm like, are you calibrated? Are you making sure that your visuals and your audio are you playing at the same time on your system? Because in the more modern systems have become, the more latency is introduced. Like Bluetooth speakers and better setups actually conversely create like more latency issues for people. So it's like definitely a thing to think about. And there's not, I mean, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like there's not always like a ton you can do on the like technical side to combat it. There's like some things obviously, but a lot of it is going to be giving the user like really easy, accessible tools to calibrate their system for themselves, because systems are so different, person like family to family, in a household to household is going to be so different. But if you give them like a calibration tool that they never see, that they don't know exists, or that's hard to use in any way, it's like you might as well not have it. So that's why we do have sometimes like an annoying prompt right at the front of a game that's like, can you please calibrate right now? Please do it. Don't skip it. Please, it's really important.
Now I know. Now it all makes sense. No, I'm glad that the question was asked. That's a good one. And it sounds like it's definitely a prevalent thing. And I didn't realize that, Helen, but great point that the more advanced technology gets, for some reason, we're introduced to more of latency and the struggle with that. So it's good to keep top of mind. So I'm glad the audience is. A great question, everyone. Anything else anyone wants to add on that one, or is it pretty much we summed it up?
I think Helen pretty much nailed it. Yeah.
Sweet.
Calibrate.
Cool. Thank y'all. Calibrate. All right, we're going to dive into a little bit more about the industry as a whole now. We've got a few more questions left, and we might be a couple minutes over. Hopefully, that's okay with everyone, and everyone can stick around and tune in and chat with us. But we were just talking about technology and it evolving. With that considered, what do you see? What do you all see for the future of music and gaming? How do you see it evolving? Are there any emerging trends or technologies that aspiring music and game designers should keep an eye on that you've noticed?
Who's gonna say it first?
The smiles.
I mean,
Are we just going to talk about how great Patchwork is?
Leave Patchwork.
oh, for real,
Yes.
Patchwork is like next level. It's wild to me, and it's not just because I've worked on it for a while. How accessible it makes like synthesis to people, not just sequencing and making songs, but synthesis. It's so exciting to see that, and it's so easy to learn. It can be intimidating stepping up to a synth for the first time. You know what all the knobs do. Um, but it seems so like low stakes inside of creative that you're just willing to play. Um, but in terms of future of music and gaming and stuff, I think like obviously AI is a thing. Like that's everybody's gonna have to deal with that. Um, and I think there's a lot of there may be a lot of fear around it, and I don't think maybe that's necessary. Like it's still early days, and there was a time when people feared Pro Tools and Ableton and all of these modern DAWs. So and everything turned out okay there. So yeah, I think AI as a tool to help us make better music, to help us with pre-production stuff like that, uh, is going to unlock a lot of uh, capabilities for people all over the world. I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, what we did with Patchwork, it's like we're giving these tools to just create an immersive world where you're at the same time learning how to use synthesis and create music. And, but I think the future of sound in games, just like what Arthur said, it's like, I just think it's, we still have control, and like we're like as creatives we're allowed to add our emotions and our own like personal touches to it, so it's not just going to be a completely robotic thing. Even inside like immersive music now, like if you kind of look at like the history of middleware and how audio has worked, I think a really good example, even if it's a little dated, and it's like one of my favorite games, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Everyone's played it. It's like when you're in the field, Hyrule Field, and you're walking around, and it's like this big, epic, like happy, majestic theme, and then like a bad guy jumps up, skeleton, whatever, like jumps up, and the music, it's still the same score, same music cue, but it just then slowly branches out into this like really diminished, like aggressive, like something bad happens. So it's like the software is triggering a creative cue that the composers have written, but it knows to just slowly sort of fade into it in a really seamless way. And it's, you look at composition and how writing works and whatever, and you can just look at like pieces of music, like and just look at how you know things modulate like in music. It's kind of crazy. Look at like whatever fugues, like how like Bach wrote fugues. It's like it's all historical, and I think that as creatives we still have control there. And I think immersive music and sound is so important because when you're looking at even just sound designing a room, it's like you walk into the room and you're thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to write some music. But it's like, well, what would you hear if you walked into a room, even at your house? Like right now, it's like I'm hearing sounds of traffic outside. And like I don't see traffic, but if you're adding like traffic sounds in a way, it's convincing the viewers or the players that there's a window somewhere that's letting in some sound. And maybe that's part of the story. Like maybe you have to go to the window to see, oh, maybe there's something outside you have to look at, and maybe there's like a secret Easter egg. Maybe you have to open the window and there's a little surprise. Like, I don't know. It's all part of storytelling. Like, I don't know. And that's how I look at sound. Like, how does sound benefit the story? And like, how can we create more ideas with sound? Like what like ideas can spring from that? So that's kind of how I view it. I love sound. So I'm a big nerd.
Thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful, Jamie, and I think that'll be super inspiring and helpful to everyone here who now has their hands on the new Patchwork devices. And we even saw the team. They were showing us how to make sounds and weird effects, even with Patchwork, where it didn't necessarily sound like music. It was just kind of an ambiance or a little, a strange tone, or kind of put you in that experience. So I'm curious to see how it all evolves in the future. Keep your eyes on Patchwork there. The team's doing great things. Now this one's kind of similar to another question we had earlier, but I thought it was definitely a valuable one, and I'm curious if there are thoughts on this. If not, that works too, because it is a pretty deep question, and that is, um, what advice would you give to new game designers or people who are interested in becoming game developers who are passionate about music and they want to make a meaningful impact in the industry of music game design?
is that it's more, I can't quite tell if that question is like, how do I get a job in games? Or like, how do I do a really good job once I have a job in games? But maybe it's sort
Yeah.
of both.
I think it could be also even Helen, like, um, if is there something that new people coming into music design and
Mm.
gaming or developing and gaming with music can do to make things better or come in with a certain perspective that could help improve that role or improve the
Oh,
career or the
okay.
industry as a whole? Like, what kind of advice you would have for new people coming in?
I mean, I guess I'm like a huge proponent of diversity, and I don't necessarily mean that in like that the obvious way of like diversity of like people, although diversity of people in studios is like really essential to making things be good. But just like diversity of experience and thought and passion in making things is so valuable. And that's what creates all the really memorable soundtracks and music experiences that we like, is that someone had an idea or a reference from some other passion that nobody had thought to use in that way before, right? So like I think um be just like trying to stay passionate and interested in, and like being able to like willing to like bring those passions to your work and your music, if you're like, oh, I love music, but also I love unicorns in Jamie's case, or like I love music but I also am a history buff, like you can draw on that and get interested in sort of like, oh well, I love Civil War era stuff. Like, okay, well go go and investigate what instruments existed at the time and what themes sort of sounded like, and then you can draw from that, and then maybe you'll end up working on a game where you can incorporate those interests together. And it's like those little things and the experiences that you draw on and your life experiences and the things that only you have uniquely been through that are going to create something that really resonates with people that hasn't existed in the world before. So like, Jamie and Arthur are both like amazing examples of this, because like Jamie does have this like metal influence, and like loves like, death metal and stuff like that, but also loves synth. And she also is like a sweet unicorn loving, like empathetic person, and like all of those things are coming together to like partially inform her work in ways she's like not even aware of. And Arthur has like this like incredible background where he's not from here, and he's like bringing in influences like from other places, and he also like has like, the music that he makes is like unlike anything else. If you guys are familiar with his work, it's like drawing from electronic music and hip hop in this like, and all different influences in this way where it's like sometimes atonal and interesting and different. And like he also has like voice acting experience, so like you can hear that when he's like singing or rapping or whatever, like that it's like very like you can really feel emotional like intentionality there, so it's just, I'm just like, I love those kind of influences that like you aren't even thinking about, like just like pull them in, like put yourself in it, and your interest in it as much as you can, and I think you will make something important.
Well
Sorry, I
said.
got really excited
Well
about working
said.
with you guys for a
That was
minute.
awesome.
Oh, they
That was
can
like a
feel
mic
the
drop
love. The
moment.
chat feels it too. Yeah, it was. Well, thank you, Helen. That's super insightful and definitely how I think we've had a talk in a fireside chat not too long ago that was similar in, what we walked away with. And that was the bringing that passion that you have from all different walks of your life, all different scenarios, everything you've learned, and then just kind of like blending it together into whether that's your branding as a creator or the islands that you're making, the games that you're making, the music that you're making. It all really stems from there, and it's a very good point to bring home. And I see there's a lot of love in chat for people adopting this and leaning into their passions. So that's really great to see, and always a good thing to consider. No matter what you're doing in creating content, lean into what you love, and something beautiful come out. Because yeah, it's like it's like Comfy said, there's a niche creative ability in everyone. That's absolutely true. So thank you so much for that. Um, I've got some fun questions just to kind of end today. Before we dive into the fun stuff, are there any final thoughts any of y'all have um, overall on the topic of music design and gaming for this audience, knowing that they're kind of just dabbling in Patchwork now?
I'd say keep posting stuff. The whole team love seeing videos of people creating. It's super inspiring. We like literally watch every video, so just keep posting your stuff.
They do. That's true. We're very passionate about everything y'all are creating over here. I mean, it's exciting for all of us to see, and where it's all going to end up and how you're going to evolve it yourselves as well, not just on our side. So we're excited. So thank you.
Yeah, and
Um,
if you're struggling,
oh, go ahead.
like there's channels for help, and like just on the passion, and like the creative lead on our team, Ryan Challenor, who some of you may see talking about Patchwork, like he just can't believe his life every day that this is what he gets to work on. Like this is exactly what he's always wanted to make. So like you can probably find a channel to him if you're struggling, or some other member of the team, or like this amazing support folks that we have at Epic, and like and beyond, people who are already becoming more expert in these tools than we are, like after a recent launch. So, like if you're struggling, like ask and just keep trying things for sure.
Great call out, Helen. Yeah, we've got, for a reminder for everyone, we have the Patchwork chat channel in Discord right now where Ryan and others are to answer any questions, and also just check out the cool things you're making. Use that to, I know I've seen, what is this channel for? That team specifically is just super highly engaged, and, they wanted a channel to not only see the cool things that you're making, but also help troubleshoot with you if possible. If they're able to give advice, feel free to pop in there and ask away with your questions. We also have, again, the forums. I believe a lot of our Patchwork devs are in there. And then we're going to have an AMA on the 30th that Flack will be posting about soon. So get ready for that. And yeah, go say hi to the team because they are very excited to work with you and be part of everything. And it makes me sad because Ryan was supposed to be on our Patchwork live stream last week, but he was unable to make it. And he was just so excited. So I know any chance you have to go say hi to him, I'm sure he'd appreciate it because he wanted to interact with the community even more. So we appreciate Ryan and the whole team. Thank you all so much. So for our last couple questions, okay, this is a little controversial because we all have our thoughts and opinions here, but what are the best music-based games of all time? What is your personal favorite?
I have to fast. I'm already ready with this.
Let's go. Let's go.
My favorite that we did not make was Thumper. That was like
Oh,
nearly a religious experience. I love that game,
yes.
and there's ex Harmonix people that were developing it, so there's like some heart in there. Um, and my favorite Harmonix game was Audica, which like not by far not our most played game, and probably a lot of folks in the chat like haven't heard of it. It's like a VR rhythm shooter where you're like
Wow.
shooting targets basically to the beat. And I was like, this is gonna be the biggest game of all time. Like I was absolutely convinced that it was gonna explode. And I learned a lot from it. It's very, very hard. And I think a lot of people like struggled in the beginning. So I definitely learned a lot from the experience. But if you like a challenging rhythm game, it's like, oh my God. I just think it's like the greatest game ever. I really love it.
This
And
looks
I also have a
awesome,
lot of like
Helen.
warm passion for like Dance Central from working with Arthur, and Arthur was like an amazing creative lead. So it was really fun to like get to work kind of under him on that project. And I love the outcome. I love the characters and I love the world.
I'm checking out Audica right now, and it looks wild. I'm sad I haven't seen it sooner because it looks beautiful, it looks exciting, and does look difficult. But hey, I
Yeah.
mean, that's just for you got to get some practice. Like, like
It's
I could
very
use some practice.
physical, and it's one of those games
Yeah.
where when you get really good, you like cross a threshold. I mean, this happens with the Guitar Hero and Rock Band 2 that I love, like where you're like struggling, and then suddenly you're like, oh. And it's like you
Yeah.
have a superpower. You're like, how am I even doing this? I don't even know how I'm doing this. And it just like feels so good.
Thumper is a religious experience though too, and I absolutely agree with that. And I can't believe somehow it slipped my mind while we've been having this conversation. But if anyone is looking for some inspiration on making your own unique rhythm game, and especially in Fortnite where you have to come up with your own music and your own vibes, and I think Thumper's pretty simple too in design in and of itself. I'm sure a
Yeah.
ton went into it, but visibly it's definitely something that is doable or could be done on this end. So I would say definitely check that for some inspiration. That's a great call out. What about you, Arthur?
Oh yeah, I'm seeing so many call outs in here that I'm like, yeah, that one. Oh yeah, that one.
No, that
Res for
one.
sure. Um, I always say this, 140 is like one of my favorite games of all time. If you haven't played it, it's amazing. It's like a musical puzzle game. It's so incredible. Highly recommend it. But Rhythm Doctor is a new one I picked up recently, and it's super fun, where you play like a doctor who's trying to help your patients with music. It's awesome. It's like
What?
one
It's got
button
a 10 out of
gameplay,
10.
super rhythmic. It's great.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to check that out. Thank you, Arthur.
Oh yeah.
And Jamie, what's your top of all time? What are your favorites?
Oh man, I already called it out earlier. Ocarina of Time is the best game of all time. Like straight
Fair,
up.
fair.
And it's like just the fact that like music in it, it's like literally like the game is about an ocarina and like you're like traveling around with music. Like you play a song and then you're like flying around somewhere else and it's like this super magical game. And like when I was little and I'd get like really mad at like my friends or my mom, I'd be like, I just want to like play the song on my flute. And I used to like think that I would be able to like transfer myself somewhere else. Like I was like 7, but it didn't work. But but
Oh.
Ocarina of Time, best game ever. And but yeah, I remember growing up when like Guitar Hero and Rock Band were like a big thing. Like my friends loved it, and I was like really into like learning like real guitar. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna play that. I was like a little snob about it. I tried to play it. I was so bad at it, but then I realized how fun it was because everyone was having so much fun, and I never thought I would work at Harmonix after that. Like that was so cool. But yeah, Guitar Hero and Rock Band are really hard. Nothing like playing the real thing. But yeah, those are great. Audika's great. Patchwork in Fortnite, literally so cool. I wish that I learned how to. I would have. I don't. It was just such a great learning tool. I keep saying that. I'm not just saying it. Learn more from the game than I did in college. So that's my plug.
Heck yeah, awesome. I'm seeing a lot of love in chat for other games too. Thank you all for sharing. Dance Dance Revolution. That's, I've played so many rhythm games in my time on this earth, but Dance Dance is near and dear to my heart just because it's just something about coming home from school and then getting on those diaper mats with your friends and sliding around and almost dying while you're playing you're playing Dance Dance Revolution. But you're getting a great workout, and you're getting better every time. So that's gonna have to be mine just for nostalgia's sake.
We did a
And
game called
oh, go ahead.
Karaoke Revolution Party that
Yeah.
was Karaoke Revolution gameplay, and there was like a dance pad at the same time. And it was like one of those things where again, it was like everyone was like singing and dancing. This is gonna be the biggest hit ever. We're gonna
Wild.
crush DDR. Like it's huge. No, singing and dancing at the same time is really hard. It turns out it was like so hard. It was fun, but yeah, lessons learned.
Single-handedly humbling all of them, all of the world.
Yeah.
When they look at pop stars and they're like, I could do that.
It's hard.
Like, yeah, check it out. No, that sounds super fun though too. I'll have to check that out. And then one last fun question that I think we'll love, and that is, what is your favorite game soundtrack of all time? I know we had Ocarina for Jamie, so I don't know if you have another answer for that one.
A Link to the Past. No, I'm just a big Zelda fan. Just go to the next person.
Oh.
Link to the Past was an awesome soundtrack, though. Wow. I gotta go with Streets of Rage throwback.
Heck yeah.
It's really good. I mean, I do love the Fallout 3 soundtrack, but I'm obsessed with that game. So, but I was like really influenced by like Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. Um, I love skate punk. That's basically like what I play. So that was a lot of the way that I got interested in like cool music.
That's
That
funny because
wasn't
I
like
feel
on
like
the radio.
yeah, I feel like every gamer has one of those, right, Helen? I think for
Yeah.
mine it was that snowboarding game. I can't remember the name of it right now, but for PlayStation 1, I think. I can't remember the name, but where they just had the sick beats. And you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm learning music I didn't even know," especially before, Napster and LimeWire and all that. There wasn't a way. So that was super cool. Oh man. And then Arthur, you mentioned yours too. Okay, sweet. Yeah, sweet. And chat, what's your favorite soundtrack of all time? We got Donkey Kong Country. I actually cleared Bubble Bobble with a friend. Oh my gosh, Bubble
Ooh.
Bobble, what are y'all doing to us? You're bringing back all of the old things. Awesome. Splatoon 3. Oh, cool. I would have to say my current favorite, because I will listen to this. I love reading. Um, and I also love listening to music like lo-fi and stuff when I work and things. And the Journey soundtrack to me, the indie game Journey, I love putting that soundtrack on no matter what I'm doing. It's just so whimsical and calming, but also very interesting and kind of transports you to another place. So that's got to be my favorite. Oh, we're seeing Skyrim, Destiny 2. It probably also has to do a lot with the games you love, right? When you hear those, they make you feel a certain way, and bring back that emotion and that dopamine.
There's a fun music soundtrack weird fact, which is Alina Sigmund, who was a producer on Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and she's like an absolute like music gaming industry powerhouse developer. She also played guitar for me in my old band, which was like very silly because she was like way better than us. But she was the singer in the like Call of Duty, like the Nazi zombie songs that like blew up and have like 100 million plays and stuff like that. Like she was just like working there, and it was like the classic video game developer story where they're like, you can sing, right? Can you come in here and sing this into a microphone? And then it's like the thing that she's most known for. And she just sort of like was at work that day. It's crazy.
That's super crazy. Thank you for sharing that.
Such a
That's
weird
wild.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned earlier about all the many things you'll get pulled into, there's definitely work out there where I was voice acting for our games in VR titles. And there'll be sometimes I'll get people hitting me up going, "Was it this one? Are you the person screaming back here? Did this?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it's so weird where half the studio was pulled into the audio room just to record because that's what you did. Like we don't have any
Yeah.
other resources. Come on in, let's go." It worked out
Yeah,
great.
I'm the computer voice in any of our games that has a computer
Oh
talking
man.
in it.
I love that.
Like,
So
yeah.
cool. Sweet. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, team, for coming on and joining us. Hopefully, you had a fun time. I know I had a great time, and I know the audience absolutely is so excited about not only Patchwork devices but learning more about music. And I know it can be a little intimidating, especially if you're not someone who has gone to school or has studied it or who has worked in it before. And this is all a bit new for everyone. So hopefully, the conversations that we had today and the stories that were shared will help inspire you and encourage you to test it out, and don't be scared to fail. That was a good one. And then also, bringing your passions to the table, the things that you love, maybe being inspired by those things that you love, and doing that research and getting into that headspace. And then Helen, you also talked about you know putting on certain albums, and I know some mentioned taking a walk, or kind of getting into that place that helps you get a clear headspace or reset. That's all super helpful. So lots of great information in here, and I really really deeply appreciate your time. And thank you to all the creators who came in to join and hang out with us. It was super fun. Definitely, if other people weren't able to make it, let them know. We're gonna have the VOD out, so you can check it out whenever. And thank you again, Arthur, Jamie, and Helen. Helen so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. And I know they do too. So thank you.
This is
Thank
so
you.
fun.
It
Thank
was
you for
super
having
fun.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yay! I'm glad y'all had fun. Sweet. Well, with that, I will there. Oh, I didn't give instructions just for how we'll end it, but goodbye to everyone who's watching on our live stream. Thank you again for tuning in. And if y'all are speakers and you would like to leave, you just hit the little red button on the bottom, and you should be checked out. And then I'll just hang out for a little bit just to say bye to creators as they, I know they like to play this game where they see how long I'll sit in here and how long they can chat for until they can't anymore. so we'll probably do that again. But
Have fun.
thanks, Helen. Thanks, Arthur. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank
Have a good
you.
rest of your
Later.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.